Ding, physical body is attacked by fist, steel body +1, combat +1. Ding, suffer from chi and blood attack, chi and blood +1. Ding, suffer from flame attack +1 fire resistance. Ding, the steel body is upgraded to the indestructible golden body. Ding, the indestructible golden body is upgraded to the ancient beginning body. Jiang laughed arrogantly and said, I'm not targeting you, I mean everyone present is trash, don't accept and hit me. Keywords of the novel. I can resist the most poisonous fight without pop-ups, I can resist the most poisonous fight. Download the complete text, I can resist the most poisonous fight. Read the latest chapters. 1, Chapter 1 Dad, didn't you eat? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Dad, didn't you eat? When Jiang opened his eyes, he saw his father's big face. Little rabbit, are you awake? Dad's face showed a faint smile. But Jiang didn't smile, instead he shuddered fiercely. So he closed his eyes again. Jiang, did you faint again? Jiang heard his father's voice and still closed his eyes. Yes, I fainted again. Don't laugh at me and I'll wake up. Every time his father smiles, nothing good happens, so Jiang is not afraid of his father's stern face, but afraid of him laughing. Time passes by minute by second. Jiang felt lifted up and his heart tightened. What did his father want to do? He felt his hands tied up, and then his feet were also tied together. Jiang heart was pounding. Dad, I know I was wrong, you can't. He tightened his bound hands and felt his body hanging up. The shoes were taken off. Jiang Duxin's bad premonition grew stronger and stronger. Finally, a furry thing was stuffed under Jiang feet. Ha ha ha. Dad, I'm awake. What are you doing? Jiang lifted his foot hard and opened his eyes, laughing uncontrollably. Little rabbit, who made you sneak into the river to take a bath, dare to swim deeper, and almost scrap the inside because of saving lives. I see you are ignorant of the vastness of the river and the vastness of the deep sea. Jiang wore a fierce smile on his face, threw away the cat in his hand, and began to untie his belt. Jiang just relaxed and saw his father lifting his belt, his heart lifting again. Dad, I was wrong. I didn't go deep to wash, I was just shallow. Although I stole a shower from the river, I managed to save 2 people at least. Is it okay to have a balance of merits and demerits? Jiang exclaimed with a pleading expression on his face. Look at the brand. Jiang pulled out his belt and placed it in front of Jiang Jiang's face turned pale. It's the familiar 7 wolves. Dad, dear Dad, don't hit me. I really know I was wrong, I won't dare again next time. Today, Dad will give you a good lesson and let you understand how much weight you really have. Jiang's face showed a smile. It's been a month now, and my obedient son hasn't made any mistakes for a month. His hands are itching. Now it's good, finally it's possible. Jiang was hung on the beam of the house, with a frightened expression on his face. Pop pop. Jiang gently shook the belt with a crisp sound. I was wrong. Jiang let out a desperate scream. It's too late. Jiang exerted force on his arm and pulled a belt onto Jiang body. Ah! The scorching pain made Jiang howl. Ding, your physical body is attacked by a belt, your physical strength +1, and your whip technique +1. A voice suddenly appeared in Jiang mind. Jiang was stunned for a moment and looked around, only his own father was around. Then his body began to heat slightly, but it wasn't too intense, but the pain decreased significantly. Jiang watched as Jiang only howled and there was no movement, still looking around strangely, and his temper erupted. What attitude! Jiang waved his belt and pulled it onto Jiang again. Ah! Jiang let out another scream of agony. Ding, your physical body is attacked by a belt, your physical strength +1, and your whip technique +1. Jiang Du suddenly became agitated, not hallucinating, and the voice appeared again. At the same time, a warm feeling rose again on his body. Yo-ho! Jiang Shang pulled his belt with some suspicion, not taking it wrong, it was just the sturdy 7 wolves. Has my hands-on ability weakened after not taking action for a month? Why did this kid just shout and then stop? Dad, I really know I was wrong. When the pain wasn't as intense, Jiang Du's nervous heart relaxed a bit, and his eyes looked pitifully at his father, saying, "Is it like being hit now has strengthened my ability to resist attacks?" Jiang Du thought with some uncertainty. Jiang Shang watched as his son's eyes rolled, and although he said he was wrong, there was no attitude of admitting his mistake, so he didn't get angry. "Good kid, you feel like you're going to high school soon and your wings are growing hard, right? If I don't behave today, I'll follow your surname." Jiang Shang was furious, regardless of whether the two of them already have the same surname. His big belt immediately waved. Pop pop. 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 One belt after another was drawn onto Jiang Du's body, and he was repeatedly struck and screamed loudly. Listening to the sounds of +1 and +1 in my mind, I can't be too sour. After more than 10 belts in a row, Jiang Shang felt something was wrong. Why doesn't this kid shout anymore? You won't faint, will you? Jiang Shang's heart twitched as he nervously lifted his head to look at his son. I saw Jiang Du looking at him with a slightly eerie expression, as if he was a bit conflicted, eager, and despicable. The two of them teased each other with big eyes. Jiang Shang became nervous in his heart. Did this kid's expression turn him into a TikTok? Jiang Du was also particularly conflicted. After finally staring at his father for 10 seconds, he gritted his teeth and raised an eyebrow. Dad, you didn't eat. Jiang Du admitted that he had angered his father. But I didn't expect to anger my dad so hard. He watched with his own eyes as his father's face changed from white to red, purple to black, and green. I'll beat you to death, you little rabbit. Jiang Shang shouted loudly, lifting his strength by 3 points and thrusting heavily. Ding, your physical body is attacked by a belt, your physical strength +1, and your whip technique +1. Coming again, coming again. Jiang Du's face suddenly brightened with joy, as expected, his father had not used his strength just now. But in order to avoid losing face, he cooperated and shouted, "Ah Dad, I was wrong." As a result, the sound came and went hurriedly, only 3 times. Ding, your physical body can withstand enough attacks and acquire the skill, Iron Body, Xiaocheng. Ding, I have endured enough belt strikes and gained a small percentage of whip proficiency. Jiang Du was satisfied and originally intended to show a bright smile, but after considering his father's face, he suppressed his smile and pretended to be in pain. Dad, stop hitting me. If I hit again, I feel like I'm going to faint. Jiang Du said in a faint voice. Jiang Shang stopped, his anger almost dissipated in his heart, and he looked at his son's pitiful appearance before finally throwing away the belt. Humph, stinky kid, remember from now on. If you want to save people in the future, you must consider your own abilities. Don't put yourself inside just to save people. Did you hear me clearly? Jiang Shang shouted loudly. It's clear now. Jiang Shang nodded repeatedly. If it weren't for the sound of +1 no longer appearing after being whipped, he would definitely answer, "What are you talking about? Speak louder, I can't hear you." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Big Fists Punching My Chest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Big Fists Punching My Chest. After calming down, Jiang Shang looked at Jiang Du with sincerity and reluctantly lowered him from the beam. Come here, I'll give you medicine. Jiang Shang glanced at himself and took out the medicine, saying, Should I take it or not? But after taking it, I still need to take medication to prevent infection. No need, I'll do it myself. Jiang smiled and approached his father, saying, Jiang Shang, have you been deceived? Just now, I was so aggrieved that I turned into a playful smile when I let him down. Did you hide something inside your clothes? Jiang Shang felt a bit unscientific. He didn't even know his son's virtues, how could he easily break free from pain? But this is summer, Jiang only wears short sleeves. No, you've been hanging me since I woke up. I don't have time to hide anything in my clothes. Dad, I'm hungry. You go get me something to eat, and I'll go back to my room to apply medicine first. Jiang snatched away the drop medicine in Jiang Shang's hand, not giving Jiang Shang a chance to react, and ran to his own room, locking it in. Jiang Shang, is that right? What's wrong? Forget it, the little bunny has been unconscious for a few hours and is now hungry. Let's go make some food for him first. Jiang returned to the room and quickly took off his shirt. He looked in the mirror and as expected, there were no bruises on his body this time, only a few white marks. Touching my own skin, it seems smoother than before, and there is also a toughness similar to leather. My body has really become stronger. Jiang felt a bit unbelievable. After being beaten by his father, his body became stronger. Jiang thought for a moment and suddenly punched the wall. Hiss. Jiang took a deep breath and quickly shook his hand. It still hurts, but the fist is still white and pure, not even red. It's really amazing. Jiang who was somewhat confused, lay down on the bed, still recalling what had finally happened. The day after tomorrow, high school will start. He measured his physical fitness during the middle school entrance examination, proving that he has a talent for cultivation and his grades are relatively good. He entered a martial arts high school in Liangjun City. Liangjun Martial Arts Second Senior High School, abbreviated as Liangjun Second High School. Because the weather is getting hotter and hotter now, I went to the river with a few little boys to take a shower. Unexpectedly, little Jiang still took his two cousins with him. Take your cousin with you. Everyone washes in a small pond by the big river, as the water is shallow anyway. He was washing comfortably when he heard the fat man shouting. Jiang and his two cousins unexpectedly entered the river and washed away at some point, and had already entered a distance of more than 10 meters from the shore, struggling frantically. Jiang didn't think much and quickly saved the person. He pulled the two out in one go. When he turned around and tried to pull Jiang, there was no trace of him anymore, and he gradually lost his strength. After taking a few sips of water, he knew nothing. Grasp the grass, Jiang. Recalling what had happened, Jiang was shocked and quickly took out the latest phone that his father had rewarded him with to call the fat man. Fatty guy, where's Zicheng? Jiang hurriedly asked. Jiang, are you awake? The chubby man's somewhat hoarse voice came from his phone, as if he had just cried. I'm fine now, how's Zicheng doing? Jiang was a bit flustered. They grew up wearing open crotch pants since childhood. He has already woken up in the hospital, my dear mother. Fortunately, everything is fine, it scared me to death, the chubby man said and began to sob. It's okay, it's okay. Jiang breathed a sigh of relief. I can't remember what happened back then now. What happened after I drowned? How did the two of us get out? Jiang asked strangely. At that time, 3 people drowned, and a group of people were scared to death, especially since Zicheng had already sunk. Who saved him? Your father swam over and caught both of you, but fortunately he came. Otherwise both of you would drown, said the fat man. My dad. Jiang rubbed his head and didn't expect to be saved by his own father. However, when it comes to why Zicheng has gone to the hospital and why he is still lying at home and after waking up, he had to be pulled by his own father with a belt. However, there were no fatalities, which is already a blessing in misfortune. After chatting briefly with the chubby guy again, Jiang lay in bed exhausted and closed his eyes. A firefly flashed past in the darkness. Jiang. I opened my eyes and looked around. There is nothing. Jiang slowly closed his eyes again and felt it carefully. Finally, a row of characters appeared in front of Jiang. Name. Jiang Strength. Ordinary person, 9/10, Skills. Steel body, Xiaoqing 1 out of 10, Whip technique, small to 1/10, Basic fighting, 4 out of 10, Skill point. 0. A row of fluorescent characters quietly arranged in the darkness, without any fancy things. Jiang looked at this row of small characters and was completely certain that something strange had happened to him. There are some things that seem to need to be confirmed. Jiang didn't hesitate, put on his clothes, and opened the door. Dad, I'll go to the fat guy's house first, and I'll be back soon. Jiang Dehao let out a scream, but before his father could agree, he ran out with a thud. I hope my guess is correct. If that's the case, I'll get a lot of criticism. The fat man was called out by Jiang with a blue nose and swollen face. It was obvious that he, like Jiang, had suffered a severe beating. However, they have already become accustomed to it. These days, children from any family have not been warmly beaten by their parents. The two arrived at a secret base belonging to their group. The fat man was still a bit confused, not knowing why Jiang had mysteriously pulled him here. Fatty guy, hit me. Jiang said to the fat guy with an excited expression on his face. Dad, who was originally cooking for Jiang shook his hand and almost threw out the frying pan when Jiang said these words. He basically doesn't monitor his son, but this time Jiang hurriedly went out and couldn't resist his curiosity, starting his first surveillance in 3 years. But I didn't expect to hear such a sentence. It's over, my son really got beaten up by me. His mother, I'm sorry child, Dad didn't mean to. Jiang didn't know that his every move was now under the surveillance of his father. Moreover, this is their secret base, and their father is still cooking for them, how can they hear it? Since it's so secretive, it shouldn't be a problem for the fat guy to give it a beating. The fat man was dumbfounded. He reached out his chubby hand to feel if Jiang had a fever. Jiang patted off his chubby hand and said angrily, hurry up, give me a punch. The fat man cautiously used his big fist to lightly hit Jiang's body. A punch hit the fat man's chest. I use so little force, why are you doing so hard? The chubby man's face was a little aggrieved. Strike me with all your might. Jiang rushed towards the fat man with some impatience. Bang! Jiang's body was directly thrown 3 or 4 meters away. Ding! Suffer physical attacks with fists and feet, steel body +1, basic combat +1. Ding! Suffer from chi and blood attack, chi and blood +1. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. I am willing to transform into a stone bridge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. I may become a stone bridge, coughing. Jiang was knocked several meters away and coughed wildly, his face turning red. Are you okay? The fat man was startled and quickly ran over to help Jiang. What did you eat? Why did you suddenly have so much strength? Jiang took a deep breath and felt an unprecedented warm airflow rising inside his body, which greatly relieved his pain. I forgot. Yesterday, when I saw you drowning, I was so anxious that I developed chi and blood, so my strength is now skyrocketing. The fat man said somewhat regretfully, I won't damage Jiang, will I? It's okay, I'm okay. Jiang breathed a sigh of relief, his warmth spreading all around him, very little, but still able to mobilize. Jiang stood up and looked at the fat man with glowing eyes. Fat guy. Don't look at me like that, I'm afraid. Fatty guy, come on, hit me. Fat guy. Half an hour later, the chubby man walked out of the secret base with a drooping face, as if he had lost some energy in spirit. Jiang is crazy, he made himself punch him more than 10 times. Woo, in the end, I couldn't even touch him. Jiang was satisfied and touched his chest, but there was no discomfort. The warm force inside him became slightly stronger, and it was still under his control. Jiang tried to extend his hand, and a faint blood red appeared on his palm. Is this qi and blood? Jiang closed his eyes. Name: Jiang Strength. Qi and blood level 1, 5 out of 10, skills. Steel body, Shaoqing 5 out of 10, whip technique, small to 1/10, basic fighting, 9 out of 10, skill point. 0 from an ordinary person to a level 1 Qi and blood realm, the iron body has also increased by 4 experience points, and basic fighting has also increased by 5 points. Then the fat guy will have no effect if he hits again. Jiang stretched lazily and felt the flow of Qi and blood in his body, so comfortable. So next, who should we turn to fight ourselves? I, Jiang am online seeking help. Returning home, under the eerie gaze of his father, Jiang ate 5 bowls of rice in one breath. Dad, what's wrong? Jiang let out a comfortable burp and couldn't help but ask as he looked at his father. Xiaodu, Dad knows it's Dad's fault to hit you. Dad won't hit you again in the future, Jiang Shang said with a hesitant expression. Okay, thank you Dad. Jiang Duhui gave Jiang Shang a brilliant smile. Anyway, you can't give me a +1 to fight, so it's best not to fight. Jiang Shang breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his son should still be saved. If he says he won't hit him in the future and he doesn't want to, then how can he live up to his mother? You can tidy up your room and tidy up your things. Tomorrow we will go to the city. I found a friend's house in the city, right next to your school. You can choose to live on campus or study day, and move your things over tomorrow, Jiang Shang said. Why do you have to live there? Jiang asked somewhat strangely. Because Dad, I'm going on a long journey. You've already entered high school and you've grown up, so you need to rely on yourself in the future, Jiang Shang said with a smile. Jiang was stunned. Going on a long journey. Since he was born, he has never seen his mother. Jiang Shang has been with him since childhood, except for his time playing and going to school, most of the time is spent with him by Jiang Shang. He asked about his mother, but at that time Jiang Shang showed some sadness, so Jiang never asked since then. Jiang asked his father where he was going, and Jiang Shang just touched his head with a somewhat deep gaze. Okay, just go on a long journey. Jiang doesn't have much to be sad about. Sometimes he even envies other people's parents going out to work. No one cares, no one asks, don't be too happy. So if Jiang Shang leaves, he may have an incredibly wonderful time. I can't bear to part with you, Jiang sniffled. Roll the calf, I still don't know your little bunny's thoughts. If I leave, your heart will be filled with excitement long ago. Jiang Shang rudely slapped Jiang on the head and cursed with a smile. Jiang Wei chuckled, knowing that his son was not like his father. He didn't pretend to be sad anymore. We common people are really happy tonight, yo ho ho. Jiang hummed a little song and returned to his room. After a moment of silence, he began to spin his brain. There are no other ideas, only one. How can we make others take the initiative to hit us? After thinking for a moment, Jiang mind flashed with inspiration. Take out your phone, log on to the Chiba, and find the Chiba from Liangjun Second High School. He remembers that in this post bar, it seems like a bunch of influential figures and beautiful school flowers have already been listed, right? As expected. There is a post called New Talent and Beautiful School Flower, Old Students Pay Attention. Jiang Qing started browsing, where there were dozens of messages about genius freshmen and 5 messages about beautiful freshmen. Jiang locked onto a target and couldn't help but show a cheap smile on his face. Open Weibo and follow this Weibo account called Xueer. Started editing. From Vivoiku. I am willing to transform into a stone bridge, after 500 years of wind, 500 years of sun exposure, 500 years of rain, please walk over the bridge. The first day I like Xueer at Xueer. Jiang, Class 14, Grade 1st August 15, 2019. Although Xueer is not a celebrity, she has attracted thousands of followers without any attention. This Weibo post woke up Xueer's fans in shock. Cheng Bawang. Very good, Jiang from Class 14 of Grade 1, right. It seems that you don't know who Xueer is. Let me wait for the start of school. Gritting his teeth, Xueer said, how dare a brat who hasn't started school to be so reckless. Wait, get beaten. Xueer and I said, on my first day of liking Xueer, I've been liking her for a year now, but woo, why doesn't Xueer give me a straight eye? Xiao Zilong. Cut, another beauty powder. Xueer is mine. Everyone, grab, no, go. One comment after another appeared below the gas bomb. Yes, Jiang's Weibo name is called gas bomb. Jiang's mouth grinned as he initially succeeded in attracting hatred. He remembered that Cheng Ba seemed to be one of the talented freshmen, so he must have fought hard enough. Jiang still has a few followers, all of whom follow each other. The chubby guy held his phone and looked at Jiang's Weibo post. He couldn't help but shudder. Jiang is missing spring. On the other side, a girl picked up her phone and frowned in disgust when she saw ET's Weibo post. The girl's face was cold, her skin was like snow, her eyebrows were like willow leaves, her eyes were like stars, her cheong nose and cherry blossom mouth, and her figure was graceful and graceful. She was dressed in a white dress, appearing as if she were a fairy. However, there was always a faint chill surrounding her, making it difficult to approach. Who is this Jiang? She doesn't even know her, so she says she likes her. At this moment, Ning Shui added another person to her blacklist. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. You Hit Me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. You Hit Me. The next day, Jiang Shang brought Jiang to Liangjun City, and the house his father found for him was really right next to the school. Because that place is simply the family home of Liangwu High School. 2 bedrooms and 1 living room, Jiang is still more than enough to live alone. I have prepared everything for you here, so you don't need to buy anything anymore. Jiang Shang looked at the house and was quite satisfied. For Jiang, this is already the best house, but his father hasn't traveled far for over a decade. When will his friends who he knows casually take out a 2-bedroom, 1 living room house for Jiang to live in? Dad, are you hiding something from me? Am I an invisible second-generation wealthy person? Now you're not pretending, you're going to have a showdown. Jiang looked at Jiang Shang with a strange expression. Jiang Shang patted his son's head in anger and said, I've seen so many rich men, haven't I? If you're an invisible second-generation wealthy man, we'll have to stay in the village for more than 10 years. There's some truth to what you're saying, but when are you planning to go on a long journey? Jiang touched his own head, and it was true that the rampant trend of the wealthy is causing some headaches. I'll be leaving soon. This is a bank card with the password for your birthday. I've saved you enough money for this semester's living expenses inside. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll go home for the Chinese New Year, so you're the only one left for this half year. Are you happy? Jiang Shang handed his son a card. Jiang sniffled and tried hard to squeeze out 2 tears. But, all right, stop pretending, the corners of your mouth are all grinning behind your ears, Jiang Shang said with a black forehead in disgust. No, you have to trust me. I can squeeze out and get tired. Jiang Shang slapped Jiang on the head, wondering what he had raised. Stay here by yourself. You have a phone number called Jiang Ziyuan on your phone. Once you encounter something you can't solve, call him. But I hope you don't call him. He's the one who lost me, you know. Understood. Jiang Du nodded forcefully. Don't worry, Dad. As long as your son is beaten hard enough, there is nothing that cannot be solved. There's nothing that can't be solved with just one beating. If it doesn't work, then get beaten twice. Okay, that Dad's gone. Jiang Shang stopped talking nonsense and touched Jiang Du's head again, saying, Are you really leaving? Nonsense. Jiang Shang waved his hand gracefully, carrying nothing with him. With Jiang Dumo as his companion, he took a car and left. After Jiang Du confirmed that his father had left, his nose finally twitched and his eyes turned red. Saying it's not sad, that's fake. Jiang Shang, sitting in the taxi, smiled slightly and cursed, stinky kid. Half an hour later. Jiang Du went to the ATM to check the balance of his bank card, and the numbers inside made him stare wide-eyed. 100,000, $1 billion biological father. A whopping 100,000. Jiang Du swore that he had never seen so much money before, and his family was not quite poor. 100,000 yuan, for one semester, instantly propelled Jiang Du from poverty to prosperity. Excited hearts, trembling hands, what if you take 1,000 first? Returning home, Jiang Du took out his phone. Post Weibo. From Vivoiku. It seems that this star was not last night, for whom does the wind stand in the middle of the night? The second day of liking Xueer at Xueer, Jiang Du, Class 14, Grade 1st August 16, 2019. Then Jiang Du smiled and began to argue with others on Weibo with satisfaction. Ning Shui the next day. Liangwuer High School became lively. Jiang Du was also a little excited. It's not for anything else, it's just because I'm afraid I'll get beaten, and I feel a little excited when I think about it. But his little excitement was first extinguished by the first level. Registration office. What the hell, the tuition fee is 80,000 yuan. Jiang Du shouted out loud. What are you shouting? This is martial arts, and your admission score showed that your qualifications were low, so naturally you paid the highest tuition fee. Didn't your parents tell you? The teacher wearing glasses frowned and said. But the tuition fees are also too expensive. Jiang Du murmured. If you can't afford the tuition, don't go to martial arts. Martial arts is not something that poor people can afford. Pay it quickly, get lost if you don't waste my time. Jiang Du thought of a mocking and disdainful voice behind his back. Jiang Du turned around in displeasure and saw a young man wearing a white shirt with hair dyed in a naughty yellow color. Which door didn't close properly and let you out? Jiang Du said rudely. The young man with yellow hair was furious and grabbed Jiang Du's collar, shouting angrily, What did you say? Indeed, even the ears are not working well. Jiang Duran, as his name suggests, has always had a poisonous mouth. In just 2 sentences, the yellow-haired young man was furious. Do you want to die, kid? The yellow-haired young man's body trembled with anger, and his other hand was tightly clenched into a fist. Yes, I want to die. You have the guts, you hit me. Jiang Du said kindly, infuriating and not worth his life. You're dead. The yellow-haired young man roared angrily, his fist fiercely hitting Jiang Du's face with a howling wind. The martial arts competition outside the arena, dropping out of school. The teacher wearing glasses said coldly. The fist stopped less than 10 centimeters away from Jiang Du's face, and Jiang Du's hopeful expression fell through with the teacher's words. Kid, wait for me. The yellow-haired young man's face was extremely gloomy, and he fiercely released Jiang Du. I'm afraid of dropping out of school, it's really useless, Jiang Du muttered somewhat disappointed. The young man with yellow hair almost jumped up in anger, his face turning blue, and he stared at Jiang intently. Are you really not coming? Jiang didn't give up and asked again. Enough, hurry up and pay the tuition fees, then get out of here. The teacher wearing glasses scolded with a black line all over his head. I didn't expect that just a few people who had just registered would encounter a student with a sharp tongue. The teacher was afraid that this seemingly obedient child would make this yellow-haired young man angry. If you don't agree, you can also fight. Come on, I'll pay the tuition fee. Jiang quickly applied the brakes and almost immediately mocked the teacher. Looking at the teacher's darker face, Jiang obediently handed over his bank card. After swiping the card, the teacher gave Jiang a deep glance. Class 14, Grade 1, go report. Oh, Jiang who had spent 80,000 yuan, felt a bit lost and pitiful. He only lived a comfortable life for a day, and in the blink of an eye, he became a poor person again. Jiang took 2 steps and suddenly remembered something, so he came back again. Don't forget what you said, Jiang said seriously as he looked at the young man with yellow hair. What? Huang Mao was a bit dazed. Which sentence? Hey, you have such a bad memory, I'll repeat it for you. Jiang Duqing cleared his throat and learned the tone of the yellow-haired young man. Kid, wait for me. Teacher wearing glasses, yellow hair, don't stop me, I'm going to teach this kid a lesson today. I'm not surnamed Huang. The yellow-haired young man exploded completely and grabbed Jiang collar again, lifting his fist. Jiang eyes lit up as he looked at the yellow-haired young man's fist. Yellow hair, ah. Huang Mao let out a series of roars, but ultimately reluctantly let go of Jiang. He still dare not take action in front of the teacher and in public. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Remember to find someone to hit me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Remember to find someone to hit me. Jiang was disappointed for the second time. What about the passion and youth of contemporary young people? Jiang sighed and walked towards his class with a disappointed expression, leaving only a pale yellow hair on his face. If I don't beat you up, I swear by Gu Hong not to be human. The name of the yellow-haired young man is Gu Hong, and now he dare not look around. He can feel countless gazes gathering on him, seemingly mocking. Hurriedly paying tuition fees, Gu Hong left in a hurry. Jiang hummed a little tune and quickly found a spot in class 14 of the first year of high school. There were only 2 or 3 people in the class, after all, because Jiang lived near the school, he came early to register. Hello, my name is Jiang. I will have more opportunities to be intimate in the future, Jiang said with a bright smile on his face. The 3 of them also greeted Jiang separately. After all, the bright smile on Jiang face was very comfortable. 2 men and 1 woman, one is a chubby little man with acne, smiling and named Zhang Fan, the other is a strong and large man named LV Gang, and the other girl has an ordinary appearance but a gentle smile. Her name is Yi Sisi, a very pleasant name. Jiang briefly chatted with the 3 of them and then found a seat by the window to sit down. Boredly flipping his phone, Jiang was waiting for someone to beat him up. But wait, finally, I couldn't resist and fell asleep on the table. He had a great time playing alone last night. I don't know how long I slept, but finally someone came. Little bastard, get out of here. Gu Hong let out a roar with the 2 of them. At this moment, more than 10 people had already arrived in the classroom. Seeing Gu Hong's imposing appearance, the classroom suddenly quieted down. Gu Hong scanned the class and found that no one paid attention to him. A hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. So awesome in front of the teacher, why are you being so cowardly like your grandson now? Quickly, his gaze locked on Jiang sleeping on the table, ignoring the gaze of others. He strode towards Jiang and punched him hard on the table. Jiang was startled and suddenly looked up, and Gu Hong's face caught his eye. You're here. Jiang Du said in surprise. Gu Hong. Damn it, why did he see a surprise in this little kid's eyes? Before Gu Hong could speak, Jiang Du couldn't wait to stand up. Walk and walk, you choose the place. I've been waiting for you for a long time, let's quickly solve it. There are too many people now, and I still have business to do later. Jiang Du pulled Gu Hong and walked towards the outside. Gu Hong and his two younger brothers looked bewildered, and before they could even react, they were pulled out of the classroom by Jiang Du. Let go of me. Gu Hong said angrily. Okay, where are you going to hit me? Jiang Du obediently released Gu Hong and said eagerly. Gu Hong-san, this kid can't be crazy, can he? However, looking back on the anger he had suffered before, Gu Hong's anger surged upwards in his heart. Playground fighting ground, let's go. Good place. Jiang Du followed the three of them happily, with a bright smile on her face. It didn't seem like she was going to be beaten, but rather to pick up the bride. Brother Hong, do I feel something's wrong? The younger brother asked in confusion. Isn't there any fraud, right? The other person also felt something was wrong. Not scientific. Everyone is going to fight, not to pick up the bride. What are you happy to do so harshly? This is trying to bully you, brother. Can you cooperate? Your smiling face, full of spring breeze, has ruined the atmosphere of the fight, okay? Mind him, don't talk nonsense wherever you go, just start fighting. Gu Hong gritted his teeth and said. The three of them quickly arrived at the place. Sure enough, the environment here is quiet and relatively remote, but it is obvious that it was intentionally built by the school. After all, the martial arts school always has students fighting against it. Jiang Du nodded in satisfaction. Beat him. Gu Hong suddenly shouted and turned around, kicking Jiang Du. Jiang Du could clearly feel where Gu Hong's kick could be, and in order to prevent his clothes from getting dirty, he reached out his hand to block his stomach. Jiang Du took 2 steps back, wanting to hear the voice in his mind. However, it did not appear. Jiang Du's face didn't look good anymore. Didn't you eat? Use your strength. Jiang Du scolded displeased. This is humiliation. The three of them exploded in an instant, and this kid was so arrogant. Gu Hong rushed towards Jiang Du, his fist carrying a strong wind hitting his chest. This is a full blow from Gu Hong's anger. Jiang Du's eyes lit up, neither flashing nor avoiding. Ding, suffer physical attacks with fists and feet, steel body +1, basic combat +1. Ding, suffer from chi and blood attack, chi and blood +1. Well done. Jiang Du felt a pain in his chest and his body took 5 steps back in a row. Yes, that's enough. Jiang Du said excitedly. I'll beat you to death. Gu Hong felt deeply insulted and kicked Jiang Du's chest in the air. Jiang Du reached out to block it and took 3 steps back, but this time he didn't stun. Why is it so short-lived? Just as I praised you, you were so weak and powerless. Come on. Jiang Du cheered Gu Hong. Gu Hong was furious and wildly swung his fists, all hitting Jiang Du occasionally. He wanted to hit Jiang Du in the face with 1 or 2 punches, but was avoided. The other 2 little brothers don't need to say anything more, hitting Jiang Du's body was like scratching an itch. Jiang sighed and realized that he could only increase it once. After sighing, Jiang Du's gaze became sharp. He watched as Gu Hong's fist hit him, and in an instant, he made a move. His palm wrapped around his fist and gently pulled, causing Gu Hong's body to follow suit. Then, a knee hit Gu Hong's stomach. Ah! Gu Hong let out a deep and painful roar, and his body was knocked 7 or 8 meters away by his knee. The other 2 little brothers were kicked one by one, all flying 7 or 8 meters and colliding with Gu Hong. The 3 of them screamed in agony, lying on the ground for a while and a half, unable to get up. Jiang Du walked over and said somewhat regretfully, I thought you were quite strong, but I didn't expect that with just this skill. Do you still have any powerful brothers? Remember to come find them to attack me." Gu Hong's heart twitched, and he instinctively thought that Jiang Du was threatening him. His face turned pale and he quickly said, "I dare not, dare not. We were wrong this time, and we will definitely not trouble you again in the future." "No way." Jiang Du suddenly became unhappy and lifted Gu Hong up, saying seriously to him, "You must find someone to hit me, otherwise I will hit you." "Brother, I was really wrong. I was blind. Please forgive me." Gu Hong wanted to cry without tears, and always thought Jiang Du was trying to tempt him. "Hey, I can't understand human language, can I?" Jiang Du punched Gu Hong one by one, causing Gu Hong to scream in agony. "Can we find someone to hit me?" "No, no, no. I dare not." Jiang Du doesn't believe in this evil anymore. He specifically hits the most painful part of the human body. Although he has not learned any knowledge in this area, he can feel it as if he was born to know where to hurt. Gu Hong was beaten to death and couldn't help but shout out, "I'm looking." Jiang Du just stopped and gave Gu Hong a satisfied look. Ding, complete the first victory of Qi in blood, and gain 5 skill points. Jiang Du's face remained unchanged, as if he had not heard anything. "I'll be obedient now. Remember, I'll give you 3 days. You must find someone stronger than you to beat me, otherwise I'll beat you up every time I see you." Gu Hong seemed to have reached something, his face twisted and he kept nodding wildly. "Yes, yes, we guarantee to satisfy you." Jiang Du was satisfied and walked leisurely away with his master's steps. Good place, good place. Come here often when you have nothing to do in the future. End of this chapter. 6, Article 6. Overlord. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Article 6. Overlord Jiang Du returned to the classroom, and the people in the classroom were almost full because Jiang Du's seat was filled with things, so no one occupied his seat. However, he has a desk mate. The classmates who saw Jiang Du being shouted out by 3 people in a fierce manner before were all amazed. Because looking at Jiang Du's calm and composed appearance, it seems that he hasn't been beaten. "Are you begging for mercy?" Jiang Du looked at his desk mate and was stunned for a moment. Because this is a girl, with a cold temperament and a stunning appearance. Even if it's just sitting, there's a feeling of not being close to strangers. Jiang Du didn't take the initiative to talk. After all, this girl looks difficult to provoke. Women are all troublesome creatures, as Jiang Du has known since childhood. Jiang sat still and closed his eyes, and the small fluorescent characters appeared in his mind. Name: Jiang Du. Strength: Qi and Blood Level 1, 6 out of 10, Skills: Steel Body, Xiaocheng 6/10, Whip Technique, Small to 1 out of 10, Fighting, Xiaocheng 1 out of 10, Skill Points. 5 Fighting surprisingly removed the word basic and became a small adult like a steel body. This made Jiang Du feel happy in his heart. The girl frowned slightly as she watched Jiang Du sit at her desk. She arrived late, and by the time she arrived here, almost everyone had already found a seat to sit down. She didn't want to be a desk mate with the boy, so she searched and found out that the seat was empty. Although there was something on the table next to her, she still hoped it was a girl. The result disappointed her. Fortunately, this guy looks clean and pretty, and he didn't bother talking to her. Jiang Dugong had just sat down and the stool was not yet warm when he heard a loud cry from the classroom door. Who the hell is his mother? Come out. Everyone's gaze turned to the classroom door, and they saw a sturdy figure like a small mountain appear at the entrance. It's looking for Jiang Du again. Who did this kid offend? Everyone is full of evil energy. At the beginning of school, there is a duel, and indeed high school, especially martial arts high school, is even more exciting. I want to watch the battle. Who is Jiang Du? The students in the class started whispering to each other. Didn't anyone call him Jiang? He bounced around so wildly on Weibo, how could he become a grandson now? The small mountain-like figure roared softly. Some of the students looked at Jiang's position, and Chengba followed their gaze. A figure entered his eyes, instantly making his eyes light up. Before he could speak, Jiang stood up. "Let's go, big guy. Let's find a venue and solve it quickly," Jiang said with a smile. Under the gaze of the whole class, Jiang approached Chengba and grabbed his arm, pulling it outwards. Suddenly caught off guard, Chengba was forcibly pulled away by Jiang. Hey, who are you?" Chengba said, somewhat bewildered. Jiang, didn't you come to me for a duel? Let's go to the martial arts arena." Jiang put his arm on Chengba's shoulder, looking like a good buddy. Chengba's eyes widened as he was about to curse when he saw a middle-aged teacher walking over and forced himself back. Two people passed by the teacher, who gave them a strange glance. "Boys nowadays seem to be overly intimate," the teacher muttered to himself. In Class 14 classrooms, all the students were boiling up. Everyone was discussing who Jiang was, and he was immediately brought up for trouble at the beginning of the school year. The girl sitting with Jiang was a bit dazed, and then a cold light flashed in her eyes. That was Jiang just now. And I even sat at the same table as him, and most importantly, this guy didn't recognize her. Did you really not recognize it? Or was it deliberately pretended? Whether it is true or false, Xueer at this time has a greater disgust towards Jiang. That's right, this girl is Xueer, who Jiang confessed for 2 days. Just as Xueer wanted to change seats with others, the middle-aged teacher walked into class 14 of the first year of high school. Jiang and Chengba had just walked down the teaching building when their arm, which was resting on Chengba's shoulder, was slapped off by Chengba. "Kid, I'll give you a final warning. I'll definitely win against Xueer. I see you have some guts. If you quit now, I might spare you one more time. But if you continue to pester Xueer, I'll smash you with my iron fist." Chengba's face was covered in flesh, and his expression was extremely fierce. Most people would probably be frightened by his dignified appearance, causing their legs to tremble. Jiang patted Chengba's arm and said with a bright smile, "You're welcome, aren't you? When we're together, why are we talking about women? I have no other intention at all, I just want to be beaten up by you." Chengba widened his eyes, feeling a bit confused, as if he didn't understand what Jiang meant. "What does it mean? Just want to be beaten up by me? Alright, don't think too much. As long as you beat me honestly, I won't go looking for any more Xueer. Let's fight quickly and make a quick decision." Jiang didn't give Chengba a chance to react and quickly took him to the martial arts arena behind the playground. Chengba finally realized it. "This is what you brought for yourself?" Chengba said with a cold expression. Jiang nodded seriously and waved his palm towards Chengba, indicating that Chengba could start. Chengba let out a loud roar, took big steps, and mercilessly punched Jiang in the chest. Bang bang bang. Jiang felt as if a sledgehammer had hit his chest, and a sweet and fishy smell appeared in his mouth. Ding, your physical body is subjected to a powerful attack with fists and feet. Steel body +1, fighting +1, tremendous power +1. Jiang took a deep breath and suppressed the churning qi and blood in his chest. With this punch, Chengba surprisingly had no use for his qi and blood. He even flew himself so far and injured himself. It can be said to be very terrifying. But Jiang became more excited than ever before, looking at Chengba with fiery eyes, as if looking at a big baby. Come on, continue." Chengba squinted his eyes and said, "Good kid, you really have guts. Die for me." Chengba ran up, jumped, and hit Jiang hard with his knee. Jiang was directly lifted up by this strong knee. The sound of ding resounds again. Cheng Ba's body was crouched on the ground, charging up like a shell. Before Jiang Du could land, he had already caught up and hit him with his fist. Jiang Du suffered 2 consecutive heavy blows and finally couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. But he still insisted on slapping the ground with his palm and stumbled without falling to the ground. Hurry up, come on. Cheng Ba was furious in his heart. Is this kid really not afraid of death? Cheng Ba walked forward and relentlessly bombarded Jiang Du with a combination of punches. Jiang Du's face turned red and white, constantly retreating with a painful smile on his face. Come on, come on. After this punch, there are still 3 punches left. After a series of combo punches, Jiang Du was hit and hit against the wall. Fall down for me. Cheng Ba roared like a lion, punching Jiang Du with all his strength and a howling wind towards his stomach. His punch was enough to pierce through the wall behind him, so he didn't believe he couldn't defeat Jiang Du. At this moment, a slender hand blocked in front of his fist. Pop. Fists and palms intersect. Cheng Ba felt all the strength on his fist wrapped around this palm, and raised his head in some surprise. You're very good. Jiang Du wore a twisted smile and kicked Cheng Ba heavily. Cheng Ba's small mountain-like body was kicked over 10 meters and collided with the guardrail. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Victory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Victory, Hiss. Cheng Ba's body slid down from the tree and took a deep breath, his face twisted in pain. I was secretly amazed in my heart. This guy looks so thin and weak, how could he have such powerful power? Even compared to him, he is not inferior. You should know that Julie is his awakening talent. Does this kid also have this kind of talent? Jiang Du twisted his neck and his eyes lit up as never before. I've been beaten by you for so long, now I can fight back. Come on, let's practice together now. Jiang Du hooked his finger at Cheng Ba. How miserable the beating was just now, how arrogant it is now. Okay, I underestimated you. Cheng Ba fell silent for a moment and slowly stood up. A strange aura appeared on his body, as if a wild beast had awakened. Roar. Cheng Ba let out a roar and his small mountain-like body collided, punching with a howling wind. Jiang Du's eyes also showed a sense of war, running and punching. One big and one small fist collided like a shooting star. Crunch. A biting sound sounded, and both of their bodies took 3 steps back at the same time. Jiang Du stood firm and rubbed his wrist, only to find that there were no injuries. But Cheng Ba was different. His arms drooped and his face turned a bit pale. Jiang Du could clearly see Cheng Ba's palms trembling slightly, even slightly deformed. I don't believe it. Cheng Ba's eyes showed a fierce light and charged towards Jiang Du again. Jiang Du naturally won't back down, using punches to punches and legs to legs. The two of them launched a powerful and heavy attack, quickly hitting back and forth dozens of times. Jiang Du found that he could clearly see Cheng Ba's moves, which is why he collided with Cheng Ba so accurately and accurately. He vaguely understood in his heart that his fighting level should be higher than Cheng Ba's. So after dozens of collisions, Jiang Du stopped putting in too much effort and watched as Cheng Ba's fist hit him, wrapped in his palm, and his body sank. An over-shoulder fall hit Cheng Ba's body heavily on the ground. This time it's not over, Cheng Ba's fist is still in Jiang Du's hand. Jiang Du exerted force and directly pulled Cheng Ba's body up, rotating 180 degrees in the air and hitting the ground again. The dull voice accompanied Cheng Ba's screams, and the earth was faintly shaking. Finally, Cheng Ba couldn't bear it anymore, and his whole body emitted a burst of blood. Jiang Du's palm was shaken open, and Cheng Ba exerted force on his foot, hitting his head hard against Jiang Du's stomach. Jiang Du's eyes widened as he felt his body churn and a mouthful of blood spurt out uncontrollably. Bang! Jiang Du's body also hit a railing, and the railing was trembling. Ding, the physical body is attacked by health +1, steel body +1. At this moment, an old man appeared on the playground taking a leisurely walk. He seemed to hear the movements of the martial arts arena and curiously walked to the top of the audience, only to see two figures. This new student started dueling as soon as school started, and the kids in this class are quite tough, the old man muttered to himself. My gaze mainly fell on Ba. Looking at the richness of his blood, I'm afraid I could almost break through to the intermediate level of his blood realm, right? Reaching this level right after enrollment is a good seedling. But why does this good seedling look so embarrassed? Under the gaze of the old man, Ba let out a roar, his body wrapped in a faint blood light, charging towards Jiang like a shell. Exploded with blood, Ba's speed and strength increased by a significant amount. Jiang wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth and let out a low growl. A few faint strands of blood appeared on his body, and his feet stepped on the railing, making him feel like a detached arrow. The two suddenly met, and Jiang palm touched Ba's fist, like a snake, releasing the strength from Ba's fist. Later, he wanted to grab Ba's arm, but the blood burst and Jiang palm was directly shaken open by the blood. Ba smashed his other arm towards Jiang chest with his elbow. Yuan lies down backward and kicks Ba's crunching nest with his feet. His blood flashes again. Ba's body is as stable as Mount Tai, and his knees are raised. The two of them were directly entangled in a fight, coming and going, which was dazzling. Ding, suffer a health attack, health +1. Ding, suffer a health attack, health +1. After 3 ding sounds, Jiang body shook lightly, and the blood that appeared on the surface of his body suddenly became stronger. Jiang didn't have time to look at his attribute panel, but he knew in his heart that he had undoubtedly reached level 2 of the Qi and Blood realm. Jiang was even more excited. Although he still couldn't resist Ba's Qi and Blood, his fighting skills were particularly exquisite, and he was on par with Ba for a moment. The old man on the stands looked at these two freshmen and touched his beard with satisfaction, feeling very good about this generation of freshmen. This little guy should be from class 3 of grade 1, but the guy he's fighting against has no impression. It seems that the school underestimated him. The old man still had some impression of Ba, as if he were a genius among the new students, but Jiang did not show any signs of success. Unable to take down Jiang for a long time, Ba began to become irritable, and his blood became increasingly strong. Finally, Ba couldn't wait any longer and let out a low roar. Battle skills, boxing. With this low roar, Ba's Qi and blood quickly surged towards his fist. His fist was enveloped in rich Qi and blood, and his entire fist was punched big, with a heart-shaking force hitting Jiang Jiang eyes suddenly lit up, moving forward instead of retreating. Looking at the huge fist coming towards him, Jiang suddenly lowered his body. But Ba directly changed his attack and punched Jiang in the face. A mockery flashed in his eyes. Can the same evasion method still work on him? His punch can be real or fake, completely controlling his strength. Unexpectedly, Jiang speed suddenly increased a bit. His hands hugged Ba's arms directly, while his legs were lifted and wrapped around Ba's neck. The tremendous force on Ba's fist oppressed Jiang and with this force, Jiang used all his strength in his legs to pull Ba's body up directly. Jiang back touched the ground, and his legs loosened. Ba's small mountain-like body flew straight out, flying 7 or 8 meters in one breath, and then crashed into the bushes outside the martial arts arena. Ha! Jiang gasped for breath and got up from the ground, watching Ba, whose clothes were pulled into strips by branches in the distance and twisted in pain. You lost. Jiang walked up and smiled brightly. A fight, with Qi and blood levels raised to level 2, and even beaten up someone who was fat. Who should I argue with? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Common sense. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 8 Common Sense. Cheng Ba's face was very unpleasant, and he was particularly dissatisfied in his heart. He felt that he should be considered a mistake. Just relying on his strength, Jiang could not defeat him. But after all, losing is losing. Cheng Ba felt his physical condition, almost depleted of qi and blood, and exhausted, unsure if his bones were broken. The battle that satisfied me was strong enough. Let's get to know each other. My name is Jiang. Jiang smiled and extended his hand. Jiang smile was very cheerful and natural. Although there was sometimes a hint of lowliness in his eyes, in most cases, Jiang was still an optimistic young man. Cheng Ba fell to the ground and was stunned as he watched Jiang reach out to him. He didn't expect that he had just had a fight with the other party and even lost. The other party didn't have any anger and even pulled him with such a smile. Those who didn't know thought they were good friends and had a sparring. But after only hesitating for a moment, Cheng Ba still extended his hand. He could feel that the other person was not a hypocritical person. Cheng Ba. Cheng Ba responded to Jiang introduction. Well, I've played today. If I have nothing to do, I'll go back to work first. If you want to find a venue in the future, welcome anytime, Jiang said with a smile, then turned around and left. When I recover, I will definitely challenge you again. Cheng Ba said earnestly from behind. Ha, it's better to come back stronger. Jiang didn't respond, just waved his hand. Soon, Cheng Ba also left afterwards. The old man's face was strange. He had just felt wrong, thinking that Cheng Ba had won when his fist changed direction. But I didn't expect Jiang Xueer to win cleanly in this way. This fighting technique can be said to be very outstanding among students. Jiang, it seems that we can also focus on it, the old man muttered to himself, with a smile unconsciously rising from the corner of his mouth. Anyway, he is still very happy that his school students are outstanding. Jiang returned to his class and found that the middle-aged teacher he had met before was actually in his own class. The middle-aged teacher glanced at Jiang and recognized him, but didn't say anything. He nodded and let Jiang in. Jiang returned to his seat and found his desk mate, the little ice and snow beauty, looking at him with a strange gaze. Too handsome. Jiang touched his face. Ning Shui shifted her gaze expressionlessly. Handsome dog poop, she was just curious why Jiang looked refreshed when he was violently called out by Cheng Ba. Shouldn't Jiang come back with a bruised nose and swollen face after being beaten? Although she saw some signs of fighting and even some subtle bloodstains on Jiang body, she didn't seem to be the person who had returned from Cheng Ba's hands on the surface. Jiang became slightly narcissistic and then began listening to the teacher's speech. There are 3 big characters and a phone number written on the blackboard. Li Kunmu, 199 Li Kunmu should be the name of this middle-aged teacher. You are all new to martial arts, and because martial arts first have qi and blood, it is generally best to start practicing at the age of 13 or 14. At this time, qi and blood begin to reach their first peak, and starting to practice at a young age can lead to a deficiency in qi and blood, affecting physiology. Therefore, entering high school is the best time for you to start practicing martial arts. Li Kunmu began to explain the most basic things in the martial arts world. 120 years ago, the Earth experienced an accident, and a special force flooded into the Earth, which opened up our current era of spiritual revival. But with the revival of spiritual energy, one dimension after another randomly appears around the world, connected to Earth. Many monsters in the dimension are cruel and bloodthirsty, or like beasts, posing a great threat to ordinary people on Earth. So most countries around the world began to form armies of warriors specifically targeting these different dimensional spaces. It has been 120 years since the revival of spiritual energy, and the system of warriors has basically been improved. At present, the realm of martial artists can be divided into 5 realms, namely Qi and Blood Realm, Rebirth Realm, Golden Body Realm, Divine Transformation Realm, and the powerful Tongtian Realm. Qi and Blood, Rebirth, Golden Body, Transforming Spirit, and Connecting to Heaven. The core word of a warrior is struggle. At this point, Li Kunmu couldn't help but write a big character on the blackboard. Warriors, since they become warriors, they will have some privileges, and these privileges are all exchanged for their efforts. The country does not have many cultivation resources, but what warriors need is to compete with people for resources and with other dimensional creatures for life. Taking the city of Liangjun as an example, it is known as the birthplace of sparks, and the dimensional space here is located 10 kilometers away in the suburbs of Liangjun, called the Huishan Cave. There are low-level creatures, such as the flame-melting stone monster, as well as intermediate creatures, flame-melting stone generals, and even high-level creatures with traces of flame-melting stone demons at the core. Hunting other dimensional creatures will give you the opportunity to obtain something called a spiritual core, where you can absorb energy and improve your cultivation. Of course, once a large number of molten creatures rush out of the Shinhua Cave, the entire city of Liangjun may turn into a sea of fire. Warriors possess martial arts skills, which are also divided into 5 levels. Bronze, silver, gold, diamonds, and divine skills. There are warriors who focus on the physical body, while there are warriors who focus on spiritual power and use it to cast spells. These professions, similar to mages, are called sorcerers, but their numbers are rare and there is no one in 100. Jiang listened to Li Kunmu talking about the attempts of these warriors from the podium, with a feeling of broadening his horizons. He never expected that the world would be so wonderful and so dangerous. He knew the location of the Shinhua Cave, but it was a restricted area and ordinary people were not allowed to enter. However, he never thought that there was actually a space of different dimensions there. Li Kunmu spoke in one breath for almost an hour, and finally said one sentence. These things will actually be explained in the textbooks that will be distributed later, and the books will be distributed later. You can take a detailed look at them. If an ordinary liberal arts teacher talks so much and ends up telling you that it's all in the book, the students may explode. But for students who have just started learning martial arts, these things make them feel like they have exploded. They even want to get their textbooks eagerly. After Li Kunmu finished speaking, let everyone rest for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, the book will be distributed, and then the instructor will be assigned to prepare for military training. Jiang lay on the table, chatting with his 2 fellow martial arts students. Suddenly, Jiang remembered something and couldn't help but click on Weibo. From Vivoiku. On the first day of school, may I be like a star in a moon, night and night, the flowing light shines brightly, the moon is temporarily dark, and the stars are always bright. Stay clear until the moon returns, 3 to 5 together make a profit. The third day of liking Xueer at Xueer, Jiang from class 14 of grade 1. August 17, 2019. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Du Yen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Du Yen. Jiang looked at the text he had edited and couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. However, Jiang was not sure whether the girl liked this kind of love poem or not. He rolled his eyes and looked at his desk mate. Hey, classmate, do you think posting such a Weibo to confess a girl is suitable? Jiang poked his desk mate and moved his phone over to ask. Ning Xue was originally immersed in the world of martial arts that the teacher had mentioned, but suddenly she was disturbed by Jiang and instinctively looked at the phone that Jiang handed over. But in just 3 seconds, Ning Xue's face was as cold as the ice lake in December of March 9. Jiang couldn't help but rub his shoulder, feeling that the air around him seemed to have cooled down a few degrees, even giving him goosebumps. In an instant, Jiang felt how terrifying his desk mate was. However, it seems that this desk mate can be used as a humanoid air conditioner in summer. Sure enough, with a different mindset, Jiang Du instantly felt much more comfortable. Not only did he no longer have goosebumps, but he even wanted to make his desk mate colder. Ning Xue's cold and clear eyes stared at Jiang Du without blinking. Jiang Du felt a chill in his heart as he was stared at by these eyes. As expected, it's even cooler now. Ning Xue looked at Jiang Du's inexplicably enjoying face, feeling particularly conflicted in her heart. She has confirmed that this dog Jiang Du never recognized her. Unless she is an actor, no one can perform such a strange expression under her eyes. However, when she remembered that Jiang Du did not recognize her, Ning Xue felt inexplicably angry and even more disgusted towards Jiang Du. What kind of strange person is he? He confesses to others every day and doesn't know what he looks like. He even asks the person he confesses to help him refer to the confession content. Get lost. Ning Xue coldly uttered such a word, then stopped looking at Jiang Du. Jiang sighed, feeling a pity that the air conditioning had disappeared. However, Jiang Du didn't care either. He told me that there were too many people leaving, so how many of you are old? Jiang Du's mood remained unchanged as he retrieved his phone and clicked send. On the third day of confessing, Xueer, come and hit me quickly, flower protection messenger. Ding dong. When Jiang Du successfully sent it, Ning Xue's phone rang once. Ning Xue suddenly felt a headache. What exactly is this guy going to do? In 2 minutes. Who is Jiang Du? Third time. The third time someone shouted Jiang Du's name from the classroom door, it still had the familiar smell, the fiery and provocative sound. However, this time the person looking for Jiang Du is not a boy, but a beautiful woman. The girl has a tall and explosive figure, wearing shorts. Her long legs sparkle in the sunlight, and her appearance is enchanting and gorgeous. Her red lips and short hair make her even more popular. The students in the class glanced at the girl at the door, and then almost everyone's gaze turned to Jiang Du. Jiang Du looked at the girl and his eyes lit up. Of course, only Jiang Du knew whether it was the sight of beauty or the excitement of being beaten again. I am. Jiang stood up in a daze. The girl stared at Jiang Du, and when she saw Ning Xue next to him, a hint of evil energy appeared on her face. Is it a dog skin ointment? Unexpectedly, she is shamelessly sitting at the same table as Ning Xue. You're shameless, let's see if I don't beat you to death. The girl moaned coquettishly and rushed into the classroom. The long whip in her hand suddenly struck at Jiang Du like a venomous snake. Jiang Du felt a bit depressed. This big sister is so popular that Cheng Ba even knows how to be wary of the teacher. This one actually started directly in the classroom. But after all, it was in the classroom, so the girl didn't swing her whip significantly. Jiang Du extended his hand and accurately grasped the long whip that was being whipped towards him. Wait, don't be here, let's go out and fight. Jiang Du said. I'm going to fight here. The girl had a hot temper and didn't care anymore. The whip shook violently, trying to break free from Jiang Du's hand. Jiang Du suddenly became displeased, and a faint aura of blood appeared on his body. He exerted force on his arms. The girl only felt a huge force coming from the opposite side, and her body couldn't control it and flew towards Jiang Du. Amidst the screams of surprise, the girl's body flew over the student's head and landed directly in front of Jiang Du. Jiang pressed down on the girl's body with one hand, and mercilessly raised the other palm. Pop! Ning Xue had originally intended to catch Du Yan, but before she could do so, she saw Jiang Du's palm landing on Du Yan's buttocks. She opened her mouth wide, her eyes filled with shock, no longer a trace of coldness. The whole classroom fell silent, and countless eyes fell on Jiang's one-handed position. Du Yan's originally struggling body suddenly stiffened, as if she couldn't believe what was happening to her. When she reacted, her face instantly turned red, and her anger erupted like a volcano. I'm going to kill you. Du Yan shouted crazily. Jiang Du's mind was full of black lines. Indeed, women have always been a troublesome creature. They fight directly in the classroom and sometimes break tables and chairs. Isn't it like they want to lose money? Watching Du Yan struggling fiercely and almost shaking the table apart, Jiang Du impatiently slapped her in the same position. Don't move. Jiang Du scolded with a righteous expression on his face. Ning Xueer couldn't bear to watch anymore, her eyes flickering with cold light, and she slapped Jiang Du with a palm. Jiang Du reacted extremely quickly and slapped Ning Xueer with the same palm. With his palms facing each other and a cold wind blowing, Jiang Du felt his palms touching a wave of ice, and the intense chill quickly covered his arms, spreading towards his body. Ding, suffer from cold ice Qi and blood attack, Qi and blood +1, cold resistance +1. The sudden chill made Jiang Du's body stiffen for a moment, and then Ning Xueer's other hand imprinted it on Jiang Du's chest. Bang! Jiang Du's body collided with the wall, suppressing Du Yan's hand and naturally releasing it. Ding, suffer from cold air attack, resist cold +1. Ning Xueer grabbed Du Yan and left her seat. A faint chill enveloped Jiang Du's surroundings. Jiang Du felt his body uncontrollable for a moment, but in just one moment, he regained his freedom. But he didn't pursue either, just stood up and flicked the frost on his chest. 2-1. Jiang Du raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect that his desk mate was also a master, bringing him new attributes, which made Jiang Du couldn't help but become excited. Xueer, don't stop me, I'm going to strangle him. Du Yan screamed and was about to take another action against Jiang Du. Come on, continue. Jiang Du walked out of his seat, rolling his sleeves with a fearless expression. Enough, we're going to fight. Ning Xueer's small face was icy cold, her gaze incredibly cold. Okay. The two of them almost spoke in unison. Ning Xueer suddenly felt a headache. Just one Du Yan was enough to make a fuss, and now there's an extra Jiang Du. End of this chapter. 10. In Chapter 10, is Xueer the same desk mate? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Is Xueer the same table mate? Jiang Du didn't talk nonsense and strode towards the outside of the classroom. Du Yan also pulled Ning Xueer out of the classroom. A class of more than 20 students finally reacted from the shock. I'll go, this is not Du Yan. She was spanked by Jiang Du and slapped twice. This kid, I'm jealous. Rogue, but suddenly I feel that Jiang Du is so handsome. Both boys and girls couldn't help but whisper and wanted to follow the three out to watch the excitement. Just as he walked out of the classroom, Li Kunmu had already turned black and walked out of the office to the side of the classroom. What are you doing? What are you doing? Li Kunmu shouted loudly. Du Yan was just about to retaliate when she saw Ning Xueer give her a glance. Jiang Du's eyeballs rolled around and his circles turned red. Teacher, the two of them are jealous of my handsome appearance and want to hit me. Upon hearing these words, Du Yan almost gritted her silver teeth and looked at Jiang Du with fiery eyes. Do you want some face? Teacher, you see, she dares to scold me in front of you. Do you know how much she treats me too much when you're not here? Jiang Du said with a look of grievance. Ning Xueer opened her mouth and didn't speak for a long time. She was really shocked by Jiang Du's shamelessness. The students in the first class almost burst into laughter when they heard Jiang Du's words. Isn't that shameless? Just now, a passionate young man was preparing a dozen or two. As the teacher arrived, she instantly transformed into a wronged little daughter. Lol. Li Kunmu looked at Ning Xueer and Du Yan, and then at Jiang Du. 3 minutes later, Jiang Du, Ning Xueer, and Du Yan stood straight outside the teaching building. Stand well for me, don't you want to show off? I want you to stand well for an hour before you can go back. Li Kunmu scolded. Teacher, I shine on the bright moon with my heart, and I swear to the heavens, it's really not my fault. Jiang Du couldn't help but defend himself. The weather is so hot and standing here for an hour can't melt. Shut up, you're not sure what you've done yet. Li Kunmu stared at Jiang Du. Jiang Du opened his mouth and was about to speak. Say another word and add an hour. Jiang Du, shut up. Okay, you're the teacher. Am I obedient or not? Ning Xue's eyes were indifferent, and she stood still without saying a word. Du Yan gritted her teeth and stared at Jiang Du, wishing to tear him apart. If the gaze can kill, it is estimated that Jiang Du has already resisted the gaze plus max by now. The students in the entire high school teaching building couldn't help but look at these three people. They still don't know what happened. But looking at these two beautiful women standing, it's quite eye-catching, but this man is a bit in the way. Li Kunmu then left. I killed you. Du Yan screamed out loud, and the whip in her hand was ready to be whipped at Jiang Du. Come on, hit me. If you don't hit me, it's your grandson. Jiang Du is still afraid of this. Du Yan. Ning Xue scolded with a cold face. Du Yan held a whip and heard Ning Xue's scolding, her eyes flickering with struggle. Well behaved, not now. Finally, Ning Xue comforted Du Yan in a gentle voice. Du Yan glanced at her mouth, with a faint flicker of water in her eyes. She resentfully withdrew the whip from her hand. Jiang Du touched his nose, feeling a bit embarrassed. The little girl was about to cry, but when she cried, Jiang Du wanted to laugh just now in the classroom. It was not lawless. I didn't know anything, so I wanted to smoke. It's not that I didn't let you smoke, but that I didn't even want you to smoke outside the classroom. Now you're crying again, humming and groaning. The three of them stood straight outside the teaching building, allowing the majority of students to watch. After a while, someone recognized Du Yan and Ning Xue. The two famous beauties and the freshman, one is cold and the other is hot, but unfortunately their relationship is excellent. Together, they become. Soon, a flower protector will come. Xueer, what's going on? A slender young man walked up to Ning Xue with a few people and asked with a gentle expression. The person with sword eyebrows and starry eyes is dignified, dressed in a white shirt, with a proper school-grass appearance, and the eyebrows and eyes are full of tenderness. Xueer is not what you called. Ning Xue said coldly. The young man suddenly felt a bit embarrassed, with a hint of gloom flashing in his bright eyes. Lin Xueer, it's none of your business, get out of here. Du Yan was full of anger, but she couldn't say anything about Jiang Du now that this hypocrite has come to join the fun. Du Yan suddenly felt so angry. Du Yan, I heard that someone took advantage of you. If your brother found out about this kid would definitely be beaten to death. Otherwise, I would vent my anger on your behalf. Lin Xueer said to Du Yan with a warm expression on his face. I don't need you to worry about my affairs. You should leave now and I'll thank you. Du Yan said with a stern expression. Now, even if you come out and crawl, you're not afraid of being trampled to death. Jiang Du chuckled and said nonchalantly. What did you say, kid? Said a little brother next to Lin Xueer angrily. Dog legs are after all dog legs, without long ears, and I don't know what some people think. At such an old age, I like to be someone else's dog. If the master doesn't speak, the dog can't help but bark. Jiang Du said nonchalantly. You want to die. The little brother was furious and couldn't help but take action. Kaizi, don't be impulsive. Lin Xueer stopped and shook his head with a smile at the younger brother. From the name, you know it's silly enough. It's always said that women catch the jackpot, but never expected men to catch two. Jiang Du shook his head and looked at the love that was typical of a mentally disabled person. Pushi. Du Yan couldn't help but laugh out loud. But soon he realized that he had a grudge against Jiang Du, so he couldn't do it, and his face tightened again. However, Jiang Du's words actually touched Du Yan's heart. Indeed, since she was only in high school, she already had a younger brother. Some people are just so cheap and willing to be a good person for free. Lin Xueer squinted his eyes and walked up to Jiang. Jiang, right? Lin Xueer asked as he stared into Jiang's eyes. Jiang picked a nitpick for his difficulty. Xueer, it's not something you can touch. If you apologize to Xueer and Du Yan obediently, I can spare you once. Otherwise, the consequences are not something you can bear. Lin Xueer said seriously. Finger dying. Xueer. Jiang didn't understand Lin Xueer's meaning. When did you dye your fingers on Xueer? Lin Xueer couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the genuine doubt in Jiang's eyes. Didn't you post the confession content on Weibo? Lin Xueer was greatly surprised. Is it someone trying to frame Jiang? Nonsense, of course it's from me. I confessed Ning Xueer, what's the connection between me and Xueer? Before Jiang could finish speaking, he was stunned. Ning Xueer. Xueer. His gaze involuntarily turned towards Ning Xueer. Ning Xueer. Xueer. He heard Du Yan calling Xueer and Lin Xueer in Xueer, but never thought that his desk mate was Ning Xueer. End of this chapter.